How's everybody doing? Deadbydawn93 back here once again for another review. The movie that I'm going to be reviewing is a film that gets a lot of mixed reviews. Either people really like it, or, well, not really like it, but people either like it or they don't like it because it's actually a pretty flawed film, but it's also very well done, and I actually really enjoy it. This movie came out in 2003, and it is M.Night Shyamalan's Signs. This is just a VHS tape that I have of it. But basically, I'm going to go ahead and get into the backstory of what it is. Basically, the film stars Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix, who are brothers, and they live in this farmhouse right next to this their cornfield and thing. And they have and Mel Gibson's character has a son and a daughter. His son's name is Morgan, who's about 9, and he has asthma, and you know, in a lot of the film, he of course takes out his inhaler and he has to breathe in it. And then his daughter Bo, who seems to have a problem with water. For some reason, she doesn't like the taste of water. You know, they keep giving her different types of cups. She keeps asking for cups of water throughout most of the film. And you know, and they of course think that it's just something that she has. It's like a tick, but it's not. But anyway, the film basically starts off, and Mel Gibson wakes up to the sound of his daughter sort of hollering for him, and him and Joaquin Phoenix run a house and they run into the cornfield. And when they find her, she's sort of standing by herself and in between the crop circles, and they ask her, and you know, what's wrong? And she goes, you know, are you in my dreams too? And they're like, no, this is not a dream. This is real. And then they hear Morgan scream, you know, hey Dad. And when they run to him, see Morgan, and he's standing there staring at this huge crop circle, basically, which is basically this right here. You can see that, and of course they don't know what's going on, and they first assumed that it was just somebody playing a trick on them, because as everybody knows, crop circles, you know, something like that did happen, and you later on, and everyone of course found out it was a hoax and it was all fake, and somebody was doing 2x4s and stuff like that, or however they do it, and pushing the crops out. So of course they call the police and they say, you know, hey, look, you know, we think that there's somebody there, but you know, the kids seem very confused by it, and of course the police officer that's there, they're friends with the police officer, and she's like, well, you know, it doesn't really seem like it's from a machine or anything because it's too perfect, you know, they're not broken or anything, and it couldn't be by hand. So they were so at first of course they're like, well, you know, it could be a joke, but at the same time they're kind of wondering, well, you know, it is a bit too perfect for it. So as the film goes on, you start to learn new things about the characters. Like, you learn new things about Mel Gibson, of how he used to be a preacher, but his wife was actually killed by somebody that they knew. He fell asleep at the wheel of his car at night and accidentally hit her with a car, and he sort of gave up preaching and gave up his faith, certainly because of that. Joaquin Phoenix's character actually used to be a baseball player, and he used to have these different records for things that he's done. But as the movie goes on, different things start happening. They start hearing noises. At one point in the film, they think there's somebody outside, and they really think that it's just somebody's son just messing around with them. So Joaquin and Mel Gibson, they go outside, and they think they're chasing him around the house, and they don't find anything. But then they hear, you know, something up on the roof. They're looking up there like, how could it get up on the roof? The roof is like 10 feet tall. Then they hear something like go over them, and it lands, and then they turn around, and there's a little swing set that they have sitting out there, and it's like going over, and then you hear the trees moving, the crop circles moving. So now they're thinking, wow, somebody just jumped over us. So of course they get the cops back over there, and she's like, oh, well, you know, I've seen people jump that high, I've seen people do it. So they still really don't have anything really what's going on. But Morgan ends up finding a book in the library about extraterrestrials, and he begins reading up on it. And a lot of stuff that he's saying seems it makes sense in a way. Like he tells, you know, why, if there was extraterrestrials or UFOs coming down here, why would they come down here and things like that. And the stuff that he says in the book, that it really does make sense. As things go on, there's a scene in a movie where they turn on the TV, and they see these lights. They're just bright lights, and there's about like 25 of them or so above the city, above Mexico City, and they're just sort of sitting there and they're not moving, and they stay up there all night, and no one has no idea. They don't know if they're not aircrafts from any of the government, for any of Mexico City's, they're not government, but the government, yeah, you know what I mean. They're not aircrafts from either us or anyone. And then during the day, Joaquin Phoenix pretty much just watches the video that they have playing all night, and you find out that it's daylight now and you don't see the lights anymore, but they still think that they're there, and they even say, you know, that there was a bird flying and it stopped dead right in the center of like the thing and fell straight down. And then more and more things begin to happen. I really don't want to get too much into it, but there's one scene that I remember very particularly that really did creep me out. There's a scene where it's a video of this guy. He was filming his they show it on the news, and it's a video of his son's birthday, and there's a lot of children out there, and they're all standing inside because they think that there's something outside, and when they look outside, that's the first time you actually see one of the aliens in the movie. And one thing is, the first time I watched this movie, I watched this with my cousin, and right when that scene happened, my cousin paused the movie and rewinded it. And then he played it for a little bit, and then he paused it right where the alien was, and he goes back. And then in the actual movie, they actually rewind the movie again and they do it. So we're like, what? But then we found out, oh wait, it's in the movie. I love Joaquin Phoenix's character in this movie is really cool. Like especially in that one scene, because in the scene he's sitting there and he's watching it, and then he gets all scared and he jumps back up. And right when they rewind it and play it again, he gets back down and sits back down again, which I thought was pretty funny. He's kind of got a humorous character. He's a younger. At one point, the little boy Morgan and his sister Bo, there they are right there, by the way. By the way, for some reason, the character Morgan, he kind of reminded me of Macaulay Culkin a lot in this movie. Not really, he just kind of reminded me of him, and he kind of looked like him. And if he's related to Macaulay Culkin in any way, I feel like an idiot for not knowing it, but he kind of reminded me of Macaulay Culkin. Just in that, he didn't look, it's not like he looked a lot like him, but at the same time, he kind of did. But there's one scene where they get these aluminum foil and they put them around their head as a way of trying to like guard, like so that the aliens can't read their brains. And there's a nurse, and then the next scene you see them in, and you see Joaquin Phoenix, and he's sitting there with one of those things on his head. But yeah, and this movie is really, really creepy. The first time I saw it, like there's one scene that I'm sure, there's one scene where Mel Gibson's character is out in the middle of the cornfield, and he's hearing people when he drops his flashlight. And he starts talking to it because he still thinks that it's somebody messing around with him, so he starts talking to it saying, you know, hey look, you're not going to get famous for doing this, stop doing this. You know, we're not going to get news cameras up here and you're not going to get famous for it, because they think that the only reason other people are doing this is just to get, you know, publicity basically. And he turns on the light, and right when you see the leg of an alien go like walk to it, and that scene was so creepy, and the music's really good too. And there's another scene where the guy that accidentally killed his wife calls Mel Gibson, and he only says like one thing. She says father, and then his phone dies, and so he goes to his house to see what's going on, and he finds him sitting in his car, and his side is bleeding, and he says, you know, he starts talking about that night and how that it seemed like it was meant for him to fall. It like at that exact moment. It's weird if for that exact moment he fell asleep at that exact moment to kill his wife, and of course he felt really bad about it and things like that. And then he also said that he believes that there are aliens in his house, and he locked one in his pantry. And Mel Gibson goes to investigate, and he goes to get down on his hands and knees and looks underneath the door, and he has this kitchen knife, and he's trying to see the reflection of it. They spoofed this really good in a Scary Movie 4. But then the hand of the alien comes out, if you want to call it an alien, you know. But creature comes out and they chop his fingers off. That was really cool. And then as the scene goes on, as the movie goes on, you know, they really think that they're under attack by something. Well, not really under attack. They just think that there's something going on, so they decide to board up the entire house. But one thing that really bugs people about this movie, there's two big things, and I'm going to get to them right now. I'm going to get to one of them right now. So if you haven't seen the movie, if you haven't seen this movie, then I wouldn't recommend watching the rest of this review, because I'm really just going to actually talk a lot about stuff that is spoilers in the film. The first thing is they start putting wood up, and they start boarding up the house, and then you come to mind, like, how can the aliens not get through wood, if you think about it? Like, they master space flying, yet they can't get through a wooden door. Even Charlie Sheen says this in Scary Movie 4. You know, they master space flying, but they can't get through a wooden door. Really? That seems kind of unrealistic, and that's one thing that I lost about. That was one thing. There's two things in this movie that bugged me. That was one thing that bugged me in this entire movie was they fly space shuttles, UFOs, yet they can't break through a door. I don't know. The first time I watched this movie, though, I was really young. It was in 2003, so I was very young. So I didn't even have any of these thoughts afterwards. I just watched the movie and thought, wow, this movie's great. Everything is awesome. This movie is really creepy, and it really is. You know, I mean, I know a lot of people, they don't like it. I wouldn't say it's like amazing film, but I'd say it's a pretty creepy movie. You know, and I think that this is one of M. Night Shyamalan's last. It was his last decent movie after The Sixth Sense. You know, because everything else he's done is kind of like, eh. But I mean, so that's one thing that people are bothered by. The second thing that people are bothered by, and this is a huge spoiler, is that they can't touch water. Water hurts them in some way, and that's no, I'm not going to get into it. I'll just say that they can't go through water, and you start to wonder, why would they invade a planet that is made out of, like, that is pretty much most of the planet is covered by water? You know, why would they do that if water touches them and water hurts them? Then why would they invade a planet that is pretty much covered by water? You know, it's like those two little things, that and the wooden door thing are the only two things in the whole movie that bothered me. That bothers me now. Back when I was younger, I didn't care. I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. But other than those two things, this movie is actually really, really good and really suspenseful. Like I said, I know that this is really a love-hate type movie. This is definitely a movie that people were going to be bothered by the fact that water hurts them and stuff like that, but it's a really good movie, very creepy movie, very emotional film. There's a lot of scenes of crying. There's them talking about the mother dying, but that's not just it. There's also a scene where the aliens are trying to get into the house, and the dad gets both the kids and are saying, you know, hey, did you ever tell you a story about the first time when you were born and what your mother said to you? And you know, it is a very emotional movie, very heartwarming movie, where at the same time it's actually a very creepy film in a way. Another thing is, there's also a scene, where's it at? I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, he starts telling them about, you know, there's one scene where at the very end of the film, they end up barricading the entire house and they end up going down to the basement. And there used to be there's like a coal chute in their basement, because they used to pour coal into the house. And if you watch the trailers of the movie, it's probably the scariest scene in the whole film. There's a scene, well, I don't want to give it too much. I don't want to give too much away, but something happens to the little boy Morgan, and he loses and then of course, since he has asthma, it really starts bothering him in his chest and things like that, and he can't breathe. And there's a scene where Mel Gibson is holding him, and they're both breathing together, and you can really see Morgan, and his face is really white, and you can really see him like gasping for air. It's not intentional. It's not going. He just, and it's really, really an emotional scene, because you're like, well, this is really, really a sad moment, and they needed his medicine, is what they needed. And there's a scene where he's holding him, and he's telling him, you know, come on, just breathe with me, son. You know, breathe with me. And that really gets me. This I just watched this a little bit ago with my aunt, who's a big fan of horror films, and it actually did make me, in a way, shed a bit of a tear. I must say, this movie did make me get a little emotional, because this movie is kind of, you know, it's a like I said, heartbreaking movie in some way. It's very moving, but at the same time, it's also very creepy, and it's actually really decent. So minus the water, and minus them not be able to get through wooden doors, the rest of the film is actually pretty solid, I must say. The aliens A lot of people complain about the way aliens look. They don't look green. They are very tall and they're a gray color. But one thing is that they actually changed their color as way of blending in, which is pretty cool, because there's one scene at the beginning of the film where when they're looking for them up on the roof, you can't see them and they can blend into their environment, which I thought that was actually a pretty cool idea, because then that means you can't see them in the dark, so you don't know where they are or anything. So I thought that was a pretty decent idea. In some way, I thought that maybe the aliens were a bit too dark, but at the same time, I get kind of tired of seeing the little green creatures. These ones, the aliens actually do look like monsters. They look like, they are going to eventually, kill us and everything. The end scene is really good. I don't want to give too much away, but there's a scene where the alien is there and he has Morgan in his arms and he's just sort of standing there rocking him in his arms, and it's a creepy image, but But anyway, like I said, if you haven't seen Signs yet, I'm sure everyone has seen it, for everyone who's a fan of M.Night Shyamalan. But if you haven't seen it, and if you're a fan of sci-fi horror films and things like that, then I would recommend this. Not a perfect movie. There's a lot of flaws, but at the same time, it's a very decent film. If I had to rate this movie out of like between 1 and 5 stars, I'd give this 3.5. Simply because even though it's not flawless, even though there are flaws in the film, there are lots of really good moments in it. And it's not just a whole movie about alien invasion. There's a lot of character development. There's a lot of emotional moments in it, and you learn a lot about the characters, which I think is something that's missing. I've seen this more. It's missing in new horror films, but this is definitely, it's creepy. The music in it is very well done, very well acted. Everybody does a good thing. Anything I forgot? Oh, I also remembered they use baby monitors in the movie as how baby monitors can like pick up other signals. Well, there's one scene where Morgan is up on the top of his dad's car, and he's holding up the baby monitor, and you can actually hear the alien sort of talking in some way, which I actually thought was actually a cool idea, because you'd never expect it. You were like, oh, baby monitor. That actually does sound like a legitimate thing to do, because baby monitors can pick up signals and things like that. But yeah, like I said, lots of flaws, but it's a very well done film, very emotional film. You learn a lot about the characters. You begin to care a lot about the characters, and this was probably the last thing that Mel Gibson did before he went all Nazi thing going on with this whole blaming the Jews for everything. But yeah, same thing with Joaquin Phoenix. It turns out that both the main characters in this movie they're kind of like, you don't know what's going on with them. Joaquin Phoenix, I think, is starting to come back, but I was really a big fan. I'm a big fan of Mel Gibson's acting. He's a good actor, regardless of his political views and whatever. I could care less about. If he wants to get drunk and screw up his career, then he can be my guest. But I know he did one film called Get the Gringo or something like that, which I have not seen that, but I don't know if it did anything for him. Same thing with Joaquin Phoenix. He did that documentary, and he grew the huge beard and everything like that. But I think that they, regardless of what I said, they are both good actors, and I think that they do a good job, in this film. I mean, I know they're not perfect, but, Mel Gibson with Lethal Weapon, and, Joaquin Phoenix with, like, Walking Tall. What's the name of that film? Can't remember. I feel like an idiot right now. I can't remember. But, I think I got it. But, yeah, it's a decent film. I recommend at least, watching it once. If it's on Netflix, if you can go down for Walmart and maybe get it for like $5 on DVD, don't spend, a lot of money on it. Just watch it once, see what you think, because I really did enjoy it for what it was, because I guess because movies that I watched when I was younger, I seem to have a thing for when I was really young. But yeah. So anyway, guys, that was my review for Signs. Again, I recommend checking it out if you guys want to, but if not, like I said, it's flawed, but I really enjoyed it, and I think that I'm sure there are other people out here that really enjoyed this film. But anyway, guys, I'm going to be doing a quick little DVD update in about a few minutes once I get this uploaded. So, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys later.